2024 All Section, Class A. Jack Clifford, Mahopac. The senior stepped into the spotlight as the Wolfpack's feature back and carried the offense at times this season. Clifford rushed for 1,030 yards and 10 touchdowns, proving he had the ability to get the rugged yards and also had the breakaway speed. He's on the Division II recruiting radar as one of the most naturally gifted athletes to come through the Mahopac program. Landon Varley, Mahopac. Varley was basically impossible to move at times on the front of the Mahopac offense and defensive line. Whether it was stopping the run or chasing down the quarterback, Varley was always in pursuit. He was second on the team with 60 tackles and led the Wolfpack with 5.5 sacks. Varley will continue his career at Ithaca. Sean Clermont, Nyack. There were very few running backs who were as productive the last 2 seasons as Clermont. The explosive 5'9", 200-pounder again compiled over 1,000 yards total as the focal point of the Nyack offense, earning all section for the second time. As a linebacker, he was again Nyack's leading tackler and the heart of the defense as a whole. Ryan Brace, Brewster. Brace was a 3-year starter for the Bears and has been the centerpiece in the middle of the defense his entire career. Brewster posted 4 shutouts this season, with Brace having a lead role as a punishing hitter. He recorded 67 tackles, 6 for loss, along with an interception and a fumble recovery. Marco Perello, Brewster. A captain and 2-year starter, Perello was a difficult downfield cover for defenses. And he was even better as a safety, calling out the coverages, shutting down the deep ball, and coming up to make 48 tackles with an interception. Jack Cavanaugh, Clarkstown North. Cavanaugh has always been a superior athlete. This fall, he proved to be a true quarterback at the varsity level. He was a dual threat, rushing for 13 touchdowns and over 1,000 yards, while also passing for 700 yards and 7 scores. The junior will enter next season among the elite at the position in Section 1. Vin Chiffone, Eastchester. Eastchester put the ball in Chiffone's hands a lot this season, and the durable fullback delivered one of the best years in program history. Chiffone ran for 800 yards and 8 touchdowns, averaging over 6 yards per carry, and taking on tacklers from start to finish. At linebacker, he had 53 tackles in the middle of the defense. Dylan Burbage, Eastchester. The Eagles discovered their quarterback of the present and the future this fall in Burbage, a dynamic talent. He stepped up to lead Eastchester to the postseason, putting up 650 total yards and 5 touchdowns. He was even better on defense, recording 59 tackles and had a team-best 5 sacks. Will Rudolph, Fox Lane. If you needed a receiver to go up and make a big play to win a game, Rudolph's name needs to be in the conversation. He actually did it this season, making an incredible game-winning touchdown catch to defeat Yorktown, a game where he had 10 receptions for 151 yards and 2 scores. On the year, he led the defense with 61 tackles. Rudolph has signed to play baseball at Division I Sacred Heart. Tommy Machado, John Jay Cross River. With a young and up-and-coming roster, the Wolves put a lot on Machado's plate this season as a veteran. Machado consistently came through, stepping in at quarterback and passing for over 800 yards and 9 touchdowns. A gifted athlete, the senior also ran for 450 yards and 5 scores and caught 13 passes for 150 yards on the season. Jacob Teetle, Clarkstown South. While the Vikings experienced some ups and downs this fall, a constant on both sides of the ball was Teetle, a brutally tough matchup coming off the line as a tight end and a bruising tackler up at the safety position. The 6'3", 215-pounder led South with 34 receptions for 500 yards. On defense, he intercepted 5 passes to go along with 62 tackles. Jason Artizone, Clarkstown South. Perhaps the most physically and feared linebacker in the conference was Artizone, who was relentlessly in on seemingly every tackle on defense. He averaged over 10 tackles per game and had 3 sacks, and all seemed to come with a crack of the helmet and shoulder pads. Artizone was maybe never better than he was when he had 16 tackles in a shutout win over Mayapack. Michael Desiderio, Yorktown. The centerpiece of the offensive and defensive lines, Desiderio came into his own this season as a junior. He started as a center since he was a freshman and proved to be the leader of the unit, possessing great mobility and strong hands. As a defensive tackle, he posted 31 tackles and led the team with 4 sacks. Tyler Galante, Yorktown. The junior wideout was the breakout star of Class A and maybe Section 1 this season. From his impressive backflip on Media Day to his acrobatic plays on the field, Galante set school records with 53 receptions for 725 yards and 11 touchdowns. He was stellar in the secondary and as a return man, setting up what should be a special senior season. Caden Gonzalez, Yorktown. The numbers that Gonzalez put up not only this season, but in his career at Yorktown are staggering. He broke the school records for completions, passing yards with 1,941 and 25 touchdowns. In his career, Gonzalez also broke the program record with 4,600 yards passing and 60 touchdowns, leaving among the greats to ever put on a Yorktown uniform. Drew Haynes, Harrison. The Huskies have been blessed over the last decade with tough, durable linemen to set up on both sides of the ball, and Haynes is the latest of that group. Haynes was a force each way, opening holes on offense to help protect a young backfield. On defense, he had 43 tackles, 10 for loss, and 5 sacks, while accounting for 19 quarterback pressures. Dante Lanza, Harrison. So much pressure fell on Lanza this season thanks to graduation and injuries, and Lanza found new ways to deliver. He was stellar lining up all over the field, putting up 500 yards rushing, 305 yards receiving, and scoring 7 touchdowns. And he nearly led Harrison to an upset win over eventual state champion Somers. He was again an excellent defensive back, making 46 tackles and 3 forced fumbles. Artin Balatamaj, Harrison. The return of Harrison as a championship contender in Section 1 coincided with the emergence of Balatamaj, who was arguably the most physically dominant player in the region the last 2 seasons. A Super 11 pick, the two-way tackle fought through a double team on every play and still made 75 tackles, 14 for loss, 7 sacks, and 2 forced fumbles. Carson Miller, Rye. Miller assumed the role as starting quarterback for the Garnets and shot to the top in the section in passing yards. He led the region with 2,179 yards through the air with 24 touchdowns in only 11 games, while also running for over 500 yards and a couple of scores. He guided the Garnets to a win over rival Harrison, an undefeated regular season, and a berth in the Class A final. Chris Uliano, Rye. The two-sport star followed up an all-state junior season with an even better senior year, maintaining his place as one of the most dynamic runners and defensive backs in the area. In 9 games, he managed 12 touchdowns and nearly 800 yards of offense while controlling his side of the field as a safety. Uliano, an elite athlete, will play lacrosse at national champion Notre Dame. Patrick McGuire, Rye. The veteran lineman brought a toughness and grit to the Garnets lines, helping the team be among the most explosive in the section again this fall. After starting both ways on a state championship team as a junior, the 6'4", 240-pound McGuire was a bruiser this season, consistently making big plays as a tackle and helping Rye go 10-1. Jake Kessner, Rye. Kessner leaves a legacy at Rye as one of the most physically impressive players the program has ever produced. An all-section player for the 3rd straight year, Kessner became a focal point at tight end, catching 42 passes for nearly 600 yards and 5 touchdowns. He was the section's best defensive player in his time and will continue his career at Princeton University. Ben Harris, Somers. The one question mark Somers had entering this season was how good the offensive and defensive lines would be. Harris answered those questions quickly. The two-way standout helped nurture a young, deep group of linemen into state championship form. The Tuskers continued to be one of the most dynamic teams offensively, while Harris and company controlled every game in the trenches on defense. Brett Kennedy, Somers. The junior really came into his own as a linebacker this fall and proved to be a playoff hero down the stretch. He had a pivotal pick six in the Section 1 championship game to seal the win over Rye, had another in the state semifinals against Cornwall, and then one to set up a touchdown in the Dome. Kennedy had 4 interceptions in all, along with 72 tackles, 5 for loss, and 3 sacks. Dean Palazzolo, Somers. There haven't been many receivers to come through this section in the last 10 years quite like Palazzolo, yet he still has another season left. As a junior, he caught 52 passes for the state champions, recording over 1,000 yards and 11 touchdowns, and had nearly 2,000 all-purpose yards as a back and return man. Mason Kelly, Somers. The workhorse the last 2 seasons for the Class A state champions was Kelly, who shouldered the load and carried the team into the Dome again this December. This season, Kelly topped 1,200 yards on the ground and 18 touchdowns, while serving as a bruising linebacker on the state's top defensive squad. Section 1 Class A Player of the Year, Miguel Iglesias, Somers. In one season as a starting quarterback, Iglesias left a generational impact on the Somers program. After 2 seasons starting in the secondary for the state champions, he quarterbacked the program to a 3rd in a row. Iglesias passed for 2,210 yards and 24 touchdowns, while rushing for 663 yards and 14 scores, highlighted by 3 touchdowns in the Section 1 championship game and 3 touchdowns on the ground in the state championship game. Iglesias will continue his career as a lacrosse player at Notre Dame.